is an incredible festival, full of colors. As you can see, I've bathed in those colors myself. Well, not bathed really, but just kind of experienced that here. I'm in India right now, and it's a huge festival. Everybody, thousands, millions of people out celebrating the coming of spring on one hand. And on the other hand, it's the time where we celebrate the beauty of this culture, Sanatan Dharma. And what it's celebrating is a number of things. One is the love of Radha and Krishna. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with that, let me show you some pictures here. See if you're seeing that. Yes. And with that we come to Holi. And that's the divine love of Radha and Krishna as they engage in all kinds of wonderful activities, playfulness, celebration. People think that being with God is some boring thing, but in fact, it's a festival of color, and that's the point to really bring home, that being with God is a celebration. And that divine love is something that is in all our hearts. We've been longing for it. We've been wanting it. We've been wanting to feel this incredible love, this incredible happiness, this incredible pleasure. And the source of that is God. We've been looking for it in the world and not finding it. We've tried all kinds of things. We have experienced everything possible in this world and come up empty-handed. And we rarely, if ever, stop to ask, why? Why is that? Why do I seek pleasure? Why do I seek happiness? Why do I seek love? And where is the fulfillment of that? Because in the world, it's conditional. In the world, it's here for a moment and then it's gone. It's fleeting. It's ephemeral. It's temporary. Whether you think it's going to be a new job or a new thing that you buy or a person who you meet, it lasts for a bit. A bit. A bit might be a few hours a day, a few minutes, and then it's gone. And now you're on to the next thing and the next and the next. And so you're on an eternal treadmill trying to find something. And then the question comes, well, why? Where is the source of that? And how can I get to that? And that's where the search for the divine begins. And I use that term just to differentiate it from the commonly understood version or understanding of God, who is fierce and fearful and all of that. Not here. Not here. Holi is also associated with another incredible story, and that is the story of the young boy Prahlad. Prahlad was a wonderful devotee of Krishna, and at the age of 5, his father wanted to know from him, what he'd learned in school, and the boy, because he had learned from his guru Narad about the divine, he learned about God, he learned about Krishna. He said to his father, "This is what I've learned, and this is what I'm telling all my friends about, is about God." And his father was an atheist, and he hated God. And to the point where, after much talking with his son, he realized this is a bad seed, a bad progeny. I need to have him killed. I need to have him destroyed. And so he set out, that is the father, Hiranyakashipu, set out to kill his own son. And he tried many different ways to do that, including putting him in fire. And so the story here is about being able, how he, even though he was put in fire, he could not be killed. And he was protected by the goddess Holika, who came in and pulled him out of the fire. He could not be burned. He could not be crushed under an elephant. He could not be destroyed by any means. But it's a whole other story. We'll get into it in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'm sure I'll tell you a lot about that at the time. So, for now, we're going to proceed with the Bhagavatam, but I'd really want you to know this about color, that life is meant to be colorful. Life is meant to be lived fully, completely, absolutely. And spirituality is what brings you there. Spirituality is not that which takes away the colors of your life and makes it dull and boring, as some people think. Oh, I'm just going to sit there and have to meditate and or do all. No, spirituality is about dancing and celebrating and singing and feasting and being able to experience God in a way that is so alive and vibrant that it's calling to all of us. So that's the invitation here. And to experience those colors, we celebrate Holi to let us know and to remind us that that's what's waiting. Of course, people have turned it into a festival of drinking and taking bhang, which is kind of marijuana mixed in some different, some kind of liquids, I don't know, milk or whatever else they put in there. But that is not the intention at all, and that is not what it started off being. So I want to just make that really clear. But happy Holi to all of those who are here, and let's get started with the Bhagavatam. So today's we're coming to the end of the third canto of the Bhagavad, and this is the teachings of Kapila, who is known as an incarnation of Vishnu, to his mother Devahuti, and he's teaching her the ways of liberation. He's giving her the knowledge by which one can become freed from this world. One can break the illusion of this world. So sometimes that teaching can be a little strong. It can be a little hard-hitting. It can be like saying it like it is. But the intention is not to be inappropriate or in some way hard on us, but really to have us wake up. It's a wake-up call. And it's a way of saying, hey, you don't have time to lose. The human form of life is very precious. We've been through all the different species. We've had plenty of opportunity to enjoy life in any and every way we wanted. But now that we've come in contact with these teachings, with the path of liberation, of freedom from suffering, it's time to wake up. And sometimes waking up is hard, isn't it? Sometimes if you haven't had enough sleep, and sometimes if you just want to sleep in a little bit more. Yeah. I know I was up till pretty late last night, and so 5 hours in, still kind of, isn't easy. But when you got to wake up, you got to wake up. There was something important to be done. And for me, it was being here with all of you guys in India, where the time is completely the other way around. So, and the same applies to all of us who are struggling to wake up. To wake up means to see things as they are, to stop being in the illusion, to stop living in the dream of this world. You know how they keep telling you, you got to live your dreams, you got to fulfill your dreams, right? No, stop. We are not here to fulfill our dreams. We are not here to live the dream. We are not here to chase the dream. No, not at all. We are here to wake up. And this conversation between the son to his mother, Devahuti, is about waking up. So Kapila says, those who live to fulfill their material and sensual desires are generally not interested in liberation or devotion to God. Generally. There are people who are sort of tottering on both sides, right? They're somewhat interested in the path of liberation or devotion to God and somewhat interested in the world. And I think most of us are in that boat. We haven't yet become detached from the world. We haven't quite given up our addiction to the world. And yet we want this other world as well. But ultimately, you have to make a choice. Ultimately, you can't have as the saying goes, you can't have your feet in two boats. You've got to take your feet and bring them into one boat. Then only will you get anywhere. So we have to, at some point, make up our mind. We can take as long as we like. We can take thousands of lifetimes if we want to do that. And that's fine. No one is here forcing you. There is no threat. There is no fear. There is no conditionality. You have total freedom and choice. At the same time, recognize that each time you're back here, there is suffering, there is heartache, there is loss, there is pain. And that's part of the world. It's not that it's intended for me or you or any individual. It's just the way this world is. We are born and we die. And in between that time, a lot happens. And that which happens, we call suffering. It's only because we don't want it to be that way. But we never stop to ask, why don't I want it to be that way? I mean, if that's the nature of the world, then why do I resist it? Because what we call suffering is only resistance. It's only resistance. If you didn't resist old age, aging, if you didn't resist death, if you didn't resist loss, if you didn't resist any of the things that happen in this world, you wouldn't suffer. Not at all. And that is one of the things we need to learn. But at the same time, we need to know it's not enough to end suffering. Just like it's not enough to end hunger, we also want to eat some nice food, right? We don't just want to end suffering, we want to have a wonderful life. So, to have a wonderful life, we need to know the recipe, the art, the way to get there. And that's what is being taught in the Bhagavatam. So first we have to let go that which is painful. Right? If you're holding a hot coals in your hand, you need to let them go. Right? If you're holding some burning fire in your hand, you got to let it go. You can't just keep holding on and still wanting good things to happen. Your hands are burning. So first we have to let go. And he says here that those who live to fulfill their material and sensual desires are generally not interested in liberation or devotion to God. They return to this world life after life. However, those whose intelligence and consciousness are purified, where does purification come from? It comes from a certain process, sadhana as we call it, a process of cleansing of the heart and mind. And we'll talk more about that. So those whose intelligence and consciousness are purified, are freed from the modes of material nature, meaning the influence of material nature. It describes that in the Bhagavad Gita as the influence of goodness, passion, and ignorance, different modes, different states of mind that we find ourselves in. So we're freed from that, and such persons do not act for the gratification of their senses. By executing their dharma, with detachment. So what is your dharma? Your dharma is that which is your innate gift. We've all been given gifts. Some are gifted as artists, some as healers, some as writers, some as business people. So whatever is your dharma, what is that innate gift that you've been given? It's very important to live by that. We're so caught up these days in going to a job. But that job may not be our dharma. It may be what gives us money. It may be what gives us a good lifestyle. But if we are not doing that which is our dharma, our gift, right? Let's say you're a gifted musician, but to make money you need to have a job. Well, you're going to feel something very important is missing in your life. You're not doing the very thing you came here to do. You're not fulfilling the intention with which you came, with which you were blessed, with which you were gifted. And until you get back on track with that, you're going to feel this big emptiness within yourself. So it's really super important to be able to connect back with that part of you. And as you do, you'll notice a sense of fulfillment. You'll notice a sense of coming home. Whether you're earning as much as you did with that job or whatever else or not, you are connected to that which is your life purpose. People wonder, what is my life purpose? No, just look at yourself and you'll know. You'll know what gifts you were given. You'll know what you naturally do that is so impactful in the world. You will see. It took me a long time to figure it out, but I was in my mid-40s when I figured it out, because no one usually tells us. They only tell us go after the thing that pays the bills, whatever that might be. So he's saying here that those whose intelligence and consciousness are purified are freed from the modes of nature. That is, they're freed from the influence of this world, from the illusion. by executing their dharma with detachment and without a sense of proprietorship or false egoism. So when you do your dharma, do it with detachment. Not that because you're doing it now, oh, I should become famous, oh, I should become a great writer or a singer or a this or a that. No, do it because that's what you do, right? It's innate to you, without a sense of proprietorship or false egoism. Very important. If you're a singer and you become very famous, or you're in whatever field, business, do not let the ego come in and take over and make that your identity. You're not a business person. You are not an artist. You are not any of those things. You are the soul within. Those are gifts you've been given, and which by the grace of God you are now acting on and bringing either wisdom or happiness to the world. So such persons who execute their dharma in this way are aligned with divine consciousness, and even though engaged in executing all kinds of material activities, they can easily enter into the kingdom of God. So remember this, they are engaged in what appear to be material activities. They're working in the world just like everybody else, but their consciousness is in a whole different direction. And because of that steadfast consciousness, that steadfast devotion, because of that dedication of everything they do, that I'm doing this as a service to God and to humanity, then it becomes very easy for them to enter into the kingdom of God. Now, in contrast, materialistic persons who are too addicted to this world and who are attached to the fruits of their work, of their labor, impelled by the mode of passion and uncontrolled senses, they continually aspire for sense gratification and are full of anxieties. They are busy day and night improving their economic condition of life. You'll hear this term sense gratification come up again and again. And that is really what we live for, is to feel good. You know that saying that was there? If it feels good, do it, right? And that's really at the heart of this kind of thinking. I mean, it was being propagated by people who said they dropped out of the world, but they were as much into the world as the next person who was doing it through business. These people had dropped out and become hippies, and they were saying, oh, no. But sense gratification was still at the core. And as long as that is there, we're trying to gratify and please the body. And hey, I'm not saying that that's wrong or bad, but that's not the goal of life. That's not the reason we're here. That will not lead us to liberation, but it will lead to a lot of anxiety. Because as long as the senses feel good, you're happy. And when the senses don't feel good, when you don't have that object of sense gratification, then you feel deprived. And as he says, such persons are full of anxieties. They are busy day and night improving their economic condition of life. So people who tell you all the time, oh, I'm so busy. Well, really, what are you busy with? You're busy with trying to improve your economic condition of life. How's that working out for you? Are you stressed? Are you anxious? Are you fearful? Are you worried? Are you tense? And what does that do to your body? When those cortisol levels go up, when that stress hormone goes up in your body, it makes you sick. It makes your body tense up. And that tension you're carrying around with you all the time. So it's important to create a life where, yes, stresses will come, but we want to keep bringing it back to a place which is calm and relaxed. Whatever we're doing needs to keep coming back to a place of self-care, a place of nurturing ourselves so that our body may function in a healthy way and our mind may be at peace. Then he continues talking about materialistic persons and says, they may elevate their standard of living by going to higher planets, but ultimately they fall down to this planet, to the same families, and continue engaging in karmic activities life after life. So they get spun into this web of karmic activities. Even if you do good deeds, then you go to a higher planet. But even if you go to higher planets, or even if you go to a country where things are good, or if you go to a place where there's a better lifestyle, right? Some people might go to a certain beautiful island where everything is just perfect and enjoy their senses beautifully, and it's great, it's wonderful. I'm not denying it is. But the fact of the matter is, You still have to deal with your families and with karmic activities, and if that's all you're doing, then you're spun into a web that is very hard to get out of. So therefore he says, such persons are averse to hearing the nectar of the activities of the Supreme Being. They are averse to hearing the nectar of these activities, of this knowledge, of this wisdom. On the other hand, he contrasts yogis. All yogis, he says, aspire for complete detachment from matter. Different kinds of yoga and breathing exercises, they engage in different kinds of yoga and breathing exercises to become detached from matter. And gradually they learn to control the mind. After giving up their bodies, they enter into the body of the Creator Brahma. Brahma and the great sages return again and again to this world under the influence of time. Finally, when Brahma is liberated, such yogis also enter into the Supreme Brahman, known as the light, known as Brahma Jyoti, the divine light. The absolute truth is completely transcendental. So that which is divinity or the absolute truth is completely transcendental, which means it's not of this world, is not affected by this world or the nature of this world. And it appears differently to different practitioners, either as the impersonal Brahman, that is the light, the divine presence, or the energy that is actually all pervades the entire universe. That is all the Brahman. And it is impersonal because it's energy. Or as Paramatma, the great soul who is seated in everyone's heart. Or as Bhagavan, the Supreme Being. So the Absolute is completely transcendental, but appears differently depending on what you're seeking, either as the impersonal Brahman, or Paramatma, or Bhagavan. Meaning, what you look for in God you shall find. If you seek to have a connection with everything, so shall it be. That will be the ultimate attainment of your spiritual practice. If you seek to find God in everyone, so shall it be. And if you seek to find God, the Supreme Being, the most beautiful, the most attractive, the most wonderful, and have a relationship, then so shall it be. But you can also have all three if you like. Hey, be greedy. This is the place where your greed is meant to be applied. You don't need to live in an either-or scenario here. You can be completely greedy for God. That's what greed was meant for. That is where you get to enjoy all your senses, and that is where you get to experience the ultimate bliss of life. So Kapila continues, a single object is appreciated differently by different senses. So, a rose is best appreciated not with our ears, but with our nose and with our eyes, right? So a single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its having different qualities. Similarly, the Supreme Godhead is one, but according to different paths and according to different seekers, he appears to be different. The pleasure of Brahman, the unlimited energy of the divine, is wonderful. It's incredible. The pleasure of Brahman is unlimited. But the pleasure of seeing Krishna face to face surpasses all forms of liberation and enlightenment. All religious, philosophical, and spiritual inquiry culminates in understanding the Supreme Being. Therefore, my dear mother, he's speaking, all these instructions are for his mother, take direct shelter of the Supreme Godhead who is seated in everyone's heart. And for his lotus feet are worth worshipping with love and devotion. When you become steadily absorbed in thoughts of him who is aloof from material association, you will advance in knowledge, detachment, and self-realization. Gradually, your mind will become equipoised. Although engaged in sensory activities, you will no longer see anything as superior or inferior, agreeable or disagreeable. So this is a huge point here. Gradually your mind will become equipoised. What does that mean? Right? And how do we get there? But let's start. What does it mean firstly? It means that although you are engaged in the activities of the world, you will no longer see anything as better or worse. superior or inferior, agreeable or disagreeable. Can you imagine the power of thinking that way? Or rather, no longer thinking that way. That a big fancy 5-star hotel is no better than, let's say, camping out somewhere or having to sleep on the floor of some place if you didn't have that. So there is a wonderful song, a bhajan, as we call it, a devotional song, where they sing, Vahva Moj Fakirandi. The fakir, the person who is completely detached from this world, finds great pleasure wherever they are. Whether they're living in a palace or in a beautiful room with like a fancy hotel with wonderful sheets and wonderful beds and foods and everything else, or whether they're sleeping out on the street, it's the same to them. Whether they're eating exquisite foods or whether they're eating leftovers that have been thrown away by somebody, they find the same pleasure. So their mind has become equipoised. They are no longer caught in the dualities of positive and negative, better or worse, agreeable or disagreeable. When you find yourself complaining, watch out, because that is your mind. When you find yourself complaining about the weather, about the food, about whatever is going on around you, about people, I don't like this person, I like these people. I don't like this place, I like that place. I don't like this restaurant, I like that restaurant. Whatever it is, that's your mind. At least be aware of that. But if you want your mind to come to the place of being equipoised, then it's very important to A, identify what's going on, and then B, actually step away from it. Enjoy whatever is in front of you. Enjoy whatever circumstance life throws at you. Enjoy everything, the positive and the negative, the good and the bad and the ugly, all of it. Now, is it easy? No. So he says, gradually your mind will come to this place. How will it get there? And he says that a little earlier. Take shelter of the Supreme Godhead who is seated in everyone's heart. So that which you need to take shelter of is right here within you. Right? It's within you. It's all around you. And yet exists as a beautiful being. So take shelter of that Supreme Godhead. How do you take shelter? You take shelter. I trust you. I trust that whatever you're throwing my way, whatever you're bringing my way, is for me, is for my best interest. And I'm going to enjoy every single little thing. And it's not easy, but as you practice, that's your sadhana, your practice. As you practice it. So sadhana is not just about doing some ritual of lighting candles or incense or chanting. Those are good things, but the real sadhana is moment to moment, the real practice. People sometimes ask, what's your spiritual practice? For me, the spiritual practice is moment to moment. Every single situation needs to be brought to the place of equanimity, to the place of neither positive nor negative, right? Then you become aloof from material association and you advance in knowledge, detachment, and self-realization. Kapila continues, on understanding this, one gradually becomes free from the influence of the modes of material nature and attains the stage of devotion or bhakti, which leads one to the Supreme Godhead. In this way, you will no longer be contaminated by this world and will experience being elevated to the transcendental platform. What is the contamination of the world? Isn't that a question to think about? How does the world contaminate us? I would say it's actually quite the opposite. In fact, we are so contaminated by the ways of this world, by thinking the way we've been programmed to think by the world, through the media, through our families, through our religions, through all of that. We are so conditioned, contaminated by the world, that we do not know of anything else. And if someone presented to us something that is not part of that ethos or that way of thinking, we might find it very weird. We might find it very unacceptable. We might even find it abhorrent because our mind is resisting that. But our mind only likes that which it is programmed to like and dislikes that which is programmed to dislike. We really don't have an independence. We really don't have a true sense of who we are and what we like and what is good for us. We often like things that aren't good for us. We like alcohol, we like sugar, we like things that are, made with fried foods. And this is just the area of food, but in so many areas of our life, we like the things that aren't good for us. That's our mind. Our mind that wants to enjoy the senses. These things might feel good, but are they good? So beyond mind, beyond mana, is buddhi, intelligence. And the intelligence is trying to tell you, hey, this stuff isn't good for you. But the mind's like, no, I want it, I want it, I want it. And it's so important to understand that the intelligence is trying to guide you. Where does the intelligence get its information? Sure, it can be from some worldly source, but the highest form of intelligence is knowledge of this kind, spiritual knowledge, spiritual wisdom that has been taught by great sages and by highly evolved beings. And if we hear that, our path to liberation, our path to freedom, our path to the ultimate joy and happiness and bliss that we've been longing for, that path becomes clear and easily attainable. So then he continues, he says, a person in this state is equal in qualities with the Supreme Being. We can never be God. Some people want to be. They want to merge with God so they can be God. They want to feel that I'm God, you're God, we're all God. But that's actually an illusion. Yes, as much as the particle of DNA in your body is you, you are God. But you are still a particle of DNA. Yes, that particle of DNA tells you about the nature of you, of this entire body, because it holds the code in it. Similarly, you hold the God code in you. When you look at you, when you experience you, and I mean the you that is beyond that which you know and that which you think, the you that is unchanging, the you that has always been you. When you come to that part of you, the soul, then you know something about God. You have experienced something about God. You no longer need to believe in God because you have an experience of God. Just as I no longer need to believe that sunsets are real because I've seen sunsets. I don't need to believe it. I know it. I've experienced it. And I experienced it repeatedly. It wasn't just a fleeting thing. Similarly, when you've experienced God repeatedly, starting with what is within you, now you no longer believe, you know. It's a lived experience. So very important to understand. And a person who comes to this state is equal in qualities with the Supreme Being. We, as a soul, are equal in quality with God, even though we are infinitesimal. Your DNA is equal in qualities to the rest of your being. A drop of water from the ocean has all the qualities of the ocean, but it does not have the quantity, the magnificence, the power of the entire ocean. You see the difference? We are one with God and yet different from God. We have the qualities of God at our soul level, not at our human level, at the soul level, but we do not have the quantity. Like the drop of water does not have the quantity of power that the ocean has. It's the same way. So he says a person in this state is equal in qualities with the Supreme Being. In other words, you're no longer identified with the world, you are identified with the soul. And you're identified means now you are completely in that consciousness. Kapila continued, this instruction is not meant for the envious, the hypocrites, the agnostics, non-devotees, and those who are envious of the devotees and of God. Nor is it for those who are unclean in their behavior or proud of material possessions. It is not to be instructed to persons who are too greedy or too attached to family life. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who are not envious of anyone, whose consciousness is perfectly cleansed, who are friendly to all living, to all kinds of living entities who are eager to render service with faith and sincerity and who have developed detachment from the world. This should especially be taught to those who have taken the Supreme Being to be more dear than anything, who meditate upon me with faith and affection, who hear and chant about me, for they will surely go back home, back to Godhead. So there's a tremendous blessing here. There's a tremendous blessing in this knowledge. Because knowledge is the beginning. Knowledge is like looking at the map. And now you know, I'm here and I have to get to here. And there is a map that shows me how to do it. Right? It's not a... It shows me how to embark on the journey, but then I can't keep looking at the map. I have to embark on the journey. I have to get into my car or whatever vehicle I'm going by, bicycle or foot by foot, and begin the journey. And at that point, I have to interact with the journey, because the journey is all about that. Now the car is coming at you, there's people, there's all kinds of things, and you've got to interact with that. And as you interact with that, you have to be focused on where you're going. If you lose your focus on where you set out to go, you might land up somewhere else, get distracted, derailed. And that happens a lot. You see yogis who attain great siddhis, great powers through their meditations, and then they get derailed by that. It's very intoxicating for the ego. Now you have power. You have powers and abilities that most people don't have. And the ego thrives on it. The ego is so delighted. The spiritual egoism is the worst kind, because it's most subtle, it's most elusive, and it's the hardest to detect. That is why it is so important on your path to always keep coming back to the place of I am nothing, I know nothing, and to be in a place of complete surrender to God. That is that surrender. That's why we say you focus on His feet. You come to that place of complete nothingness. And this is expressed on the path of devotion as humility. Because from humility comes everything. Amanina manadena, Chaitanya says. Practically what it means is this: to not seek respect for yourself, but to give respect to everyone else. You may say, oh, I'm going to get walked all over. Yes, that's your ego talking. Be walked all over. It's all right. Don't worry about it. What will get walked over? Do it consciously. Don't do it from the egoic perspective and then feel like crap afterwards. No, that's not going to help you. Get walked all over, but do it consciously. Do it from a place of realizing that I am nothing. And God, thank you so much for this experience of annihilating my ego, of devastating my false illusions, of breaking my attachment to this being and to the stuff that I have and to the image that I portray. So much of our life is based upon portraying an image, and that image is false. We don't want people to think badly of us. We want people to like us. But why? That's the ego. The ego is trying to perpetuate itself. But spiritual advancement is about the annihilation of the ego, to let it go, to break it, to shatter it, to let it be reduced to nothing. And it is painful for the ego, not for the soul, not for you. You can watch it and you can laugh and you can be amused and you can be like, oh, come on, it's okay, I got you. We'll be all right, don't worry. You can comfort the ego even. So do not be taken in with its messages, the ego's messages that tell you, oh, no, give respect to everyone and don't expect any in return. It's a practice. So Devahuti now, the mother of Kapila and the wife of Kardam Muni, who we talked about a few episodes back, received transcendental knowledge from her son and then said to him, Brahma is said to be unborn. That is, Brahma is known to be the creator of the universe who is acting on behalf of God. Brahma is said to be unborn, yet by simply meditating on you, he manifested unlimited universes. How is it possible that the Supreme One, in whose belly lies the entire cosmic manifestation, has taken birth from my abdomen? How is it that at the end of the millennium you lie down on a leaf of a banyan tree and just like a small baby, you suck the toe of your lotus foot? Now this is such an interesting statement, and it will come up in the Bhagavatam later on, but this is like a little preview, and I wanted to show you this lovely image of Vishnu sucking on his toe at the end of when the creation is annihilated. I'll read you a little something about that as well. But it's just adorable, absolutely adorable. So the story is about from the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're coming to the end of the 3rd, where the sage Markandeya describes seeing baby Krishna sleeping on a banyan leaf, the leaf of a banyan tree. He says, the graceful fingers of his 2 hands grabbed one of his lotus feet and placed his toe in his mouth. When the waters of cosmic dissolution destroy the universe, Vishnu swallows everything within his tiny stomach for its protection. With his soft lotus hands, he then grabs his lotus-like toe and places it in his lotus mouth, decorated with red lips, and sucks on it in amusement, contemplating the next cycle of creation. Devotees meditate on his lotus feet and find transcendental pleasure there. He then appears as a baby to suck his toe and taste the nectar for which the devotees always aspire. Sometimes he wonders how much transcendental pleasure is within myself. And in order to experience this, he appears as Sri Chaitanya. It was Chaitanya's birthday a couple of days ago, known as Gaur Purnima. On the full moon day at this time is when Chaitanya appears. And he is the incarnation of Radha and Krishna as one, in one form. So this is Krishna wanting to taste the sweetness of ecstatic love that Radha, his beloved, experiences for him. He says, I cannot experience what she experiences. I need to become her. And only when I become her will I be able to experience her love for me. It is true that the feminine has a far greater capacity to love than does the masculine. And so it is with God. The feminine aspect of God is Radha. And that incredible being, Radha, is the source of all love for God. One who has understood the mysteries of Radha, one who has understood her nature and her love and her devotion to her beloved, who is no different than her. They are of the same frequency, of the same energy. They are the one divided into 2. One who has understood her love for Krishna and who has learned from her. She is the ultimate guru, the ultimate teacher of how to love Krishna, how to love God. So in order to experience the love she has for him, Krishna appears as Chaitanya and he exhibits the ecstasies of that love and feels the ecstasies of it right here on this earth 500 years ago. So it's a wonderful narrative. There's many books on the subject of Chaitanya, and maybe we'll get to it at some point. These here are some pictures, well, a picture, showing that love, showing that how in Chaitanya both Radha and Krishna were present. So Devahuti, the mother, continues. She says, by your own will you assume various incarnations. Now you have appeared to distribute transcendental knowledge in order to diminish the karma of the fallen souls and to enrich their knowledge in devotion and liberation. Even the most sinful person becomes elevated by once uttering the name of God, by speaking about him, by hearing his pastimes, by offering obeisances or respects, and by remembering him. To chant your name, one must have studied the Vedas and engaged in intense spiritual practice. So even just to come to this path where you are listening to these things, where you have that rapt attention with which to absorb this information, where you even once chant the names of God, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. To even once chant the names of God like this means that you have studied spirituality through many lifetimes and engaged in intense spiritual practice. That is why you're now here. Devahuti continues talking to her son. She says, I believe that you are Vishnu himself under the name of Kapila. You are the supreme Brahman. Means the energy of the universe now embodied in this form, this avatar of Kapila. The saints and sages meditate on you to be freed from all the disturbances of the senses and mind. By your mercy, one becomes free from the clutches of the energy of this world. The Supreme Godhead Kapila, satisfied by the words of his mother, towards whom he was very affectionate, replied with gravity, My dear mother, the path of self-realization which I have instructed to you is very easy. You can execute it without difficulty and shall very soon be liberated, even within your present body. Transcendentalists, spiritual seekers, who follow my instructions and traverse this path of self-realization shall surely be freed from fearful material contamination and ultimately reach me. Without this knowledge, it is very difficult to get out of the cycle of birth and death. Kapila then took permission from his beloved mother and left home, his mission having been fulfilled. As instructed, so what was his mission? His mission was first to teach his mother. Right? First we do for our family. We liberate them, we pass on this knowledge to them, and then we spread it out to the world. Whatever gifts you have, you give to your family, no doubt. But then give it to the world as well. So whether it's wealth, or whether it's knowledge, or whether it's any other gift that you've been given, certainly your family gets to enjoy it first. If they are capable, of course, and they may not be. That, in this case, Devahuti is very receptive, very capable, and she receives fully from her son. And she acts on it. So it says here, as instructed by her son, Devahuti began to practice bhakti yoga and attained samadhi. So samadhi is that state of complete rapture or trance or oneness. She reached that point through practicing the devotional practices that her son had told her about, bhakti yoga. And she attained this samadhi, right, in the house of her husband, who had also left and gone on his path as a renunciate, as a monk. So his name was Kardam, Kardama. So in the house of Kardam Muni, which was so beautifully decorated with flowers that it was considered the flower crown of the river Saraswati. I believe the river Saraswati has been kind of, I don't know, you don't find it now. But I haven't done the research on that, so worth looking into. There's a lot spoken about the river Saraswati here. Devahuti performed austerities, her hair turned grey, her body became thin, and she wore old garments. By dint of his mystic power, her husband Kardam had created an incredible home. It is said that the sheets and mattresses were all as white as the foam of milk. The chairs and benches were made of ivory and were covered by cloths of lace with golden filigree, and the couches were made of gold and had very soft pillows. The walls of the house were made of first-class marble, decorated with valuable jewels. There was no need of light, for the household was illuminated by the rays of these jewels. The female members of the household, that is the attendants and maids and helpers, the female members of the household were all amply decorated with jewelry. The compound was surrounded by beautiful gardens with sweet, fragrant flowers and many trees which produced fresh fruit and were tall and beautiful. Singing birds would sit on the trees. Their enchanting voices, as well as the humming sound of the bees, made the whole atmosphere very pleasing. Devahuti would enter that lovely garden to take her bath in the pond filled with lotus flowers. Although her position was unique from all points of view, in spite of all her possessions, which were envied everywhere, she gave up all such comforts. Devahuti's husband Kardam had already left home and accepted the renounced order of life. He became a sannyasi, a monk. Yet he had given her protection, or rather continued to protect her at all times. Although she knew all of the truths of life and death, and although her heart was cleansed of all dirt, she was very aggrieved at the loss of her only son Kapila. By always meditating on her son, who is the incarnation of Vishnu, she very soon became unattached to her nicely decorated home. So it shows that by meditation on the divine, and on God, or on Vishnu, Krishna, we gradually become detached from the world. How is that, and why is that? Because as you gain something better, you let go of something that is inferior. A child, when child grows up, gets a real home and no longer needs that little toy home that was so cute and adorable when they were young. Now they have a real home to play in. Now, earlier they had little dolls, and now that same child has children and babies of their own. And it's a whole different experience. Now those babies play with dolls, of course, but the mother has outgrown them in a sense, because now she has something better. In the same way, when you have something better, you give up something that is not as good. In that way, as soon as we receive that love of God, that completely deep feeling of being immersed in God, the world now no longer matters and it no longer affects us. Devahuti began to meditate constantly upon the form of Vishnu, the Supreme Godhead. She accepted only the bare necessities of the body. Gradually, as she became fully absorbed in meditation, her heart became purified of all misgivings arising from contact with material nature. Her mind became completely absorbed in the Supreme Being, and she automatically realized the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. She became freed from the dualities of the materialistic way of life. All material pangs, desires disappeared, and she attained transcendental bliss. Situated in transcendental trance and freed from illusion, she forgot her material body, just as one forgets one's different bodies in a dream. Her body was being taken care of by the spiritual damsels created by her husband Kardam. She had no mental anxiety at the time. Her body did not become thin. She appeared just like a fire surrounded by smoke. Always absorbed in the thoughts of the Supreme Godhead, she was not aware that sometimes her hair was loosened or her garments were disarrayed. She soon became liberated from material bondage and achieved the divine without difficulty. The place where she attained perfection is understood to be a most sacred spot and is known as Siddhapad. The material elements of her body have melted into water and are now a flowing river, which is the most sacred of all rivers, the river Saraswati. Anyone who bathes in that river also attains perfection, and therefore all persons who desire perfection go there. The great sage Kapila left his father's hermitage with the permission of his mother and went towards the northeast. The celestial denizens of the heavenly planets prayed and offered him all respects. The ocean offered him a place of residence. Even now, Kapila is staying there in trance for the deliverance of the conditioned souls in the three worlds. The teachers of the Sankhya system continue to worship him. So, if I'm getting this right, Kapila has found residence within the ocean and is staying there in trance for the deliverance of the souls of this world. Of not just this planet, but the entire universe. I don't know, but that's what it says here. The descriptions of Kapila and his mother and their activities are the purest of all pure discourses. The descriptions of the dealings of Kapila and his mother is very confidential, and anyone who hears or reads this narration becomes a devotee of the Supreme Godhead Vishnu and enters into the abode of God to engage in his transcendental loving service. So with that we end Canto 3 of the Bhagavatam. And I'm most grateful to all of you who've been following along. It's been such an honor having you here. I would love to throw this up for discussion now and would like to hear your views. Some of you have been writing in the comments Those of you who've been waiting to write in the comments, please do so, because I'm going to be reading from there and I want to know what you've got to say. So let's see what we've got. Let's bring this over to here. Okay, give me a moment. I'll be with you. Okay. So if any of you have a comment on the Zoom side, just raise your hand and I'll call you on. Or write something in the comments. I'll take a look at that. Okay, Celie writes, your face looks like you took a fall. Haha, it's holy. Happy Holi. Yes, it is holy. And for those of you that were a little late getting here, I had talked about it in the beginning. This is just the red color of Holi, and my mom had put it on me. So I said, hey, let me just keep it on. As some of you know, I'm in India right now, and Holi is a big festival here. It's a festival of color, and if you missed the beginning, please watch it again in the YouTube, where it saves all of these sessions. But there's a lot of meaning behind Holi, and it's a tremendous celebration here. You have people all over, everywhere, celebrating, throwing colors on each other. Some kids get a little naughty. They throw balls of colored water on people as they walk by, and it hurts. But no, normally it's with dry colors that they put on each other. And eventually you've got your whole mix of colors all over you. It's beautiful. I don't like the way they do it in the West, where they throw the colors up in the air and then you kind of end up breathing it. That's not good. We put it on each other very lovingly. And it's an act of just embracing the colors of who we are and the aliveness that we're here to experience, and the sense of vibrance that we are capable of. Really, thank you for your wonderful comments. I'll just put them here share them here on the YouTube. Cece writes, she says that you said that doing all in service of God guarantees entrance into the kingdom of God. Don't we all enter into the kingdom of God? God is forgiving and loving. May we enter different levels of existence, of awareness. So let me read that question again. You said that doing everything we do, or doing all, is in service of God, guarantees entrance into the kingdom of God. Don't we all enter the kingdom? God is forgiving and loving. May we enter different levels of awareness. Yes, firstly, we do enter into different levels of awareness, and how long we linger in this world depends on us. We have free will. We have the choice to be here as long as we like. Not everybody wants to go to the kingdom of God. Most people want to stay here and enjoy the stuff of the world. And they're not interested in something beyond this. So firstly, one has to aspire, one has to realize that this is not it. This is not where it's at, and that there is another world, and that we came from there. And that's why whatever we're seeking here is a longing for that world where we came from. Right? I've often said it, that we seek eternal life, not because that's some whim or fancy of ours, but that's our actual nature. We are eternal beings. So we seek eternality, and this body doesn't give it to us. So we become very frustrated and unhappy. We are eternally youthful, and we can't do that in this world. We are eternally blissful, and we can't have that here. We are in love with everything and everyone. We are love. Our nature, the nature of our soul, is pure love, because we come from God, and God is pure love. But that cannot be attained here. So those who have realized that this is what they want now begin to focus their energies, their devotion on that path. which means they learn to let go of this world. Keep in mind that as long as you are attached to the world, you will come back to the world. Keep in mind that as long as you desire the world and the world lives in you, then you need to come back here to fulfill those desires. As long as you engage from a place of wanting to acquire things for your own selfish needs and pleasures, those things will build karma. That karma will bring you back to the world. So on one sense, everyone makes it back to the kingdom of God. Everyone, including the atheist, the person who has no interest in these things, at some point they wake up. At some point, they begin to realize the folly of their earlier understanding. Even the ones who hate God, even the ones who are completely inimical, doesn't matter. At some point, over many lifetimes, they get there. But those who want to get there now, they focus their energies completely. Now, is it possible that someone like Christ comes along and blesses people with grace? Absolutely. Krishna says the same thing. One who surrenders unto me, I will immediately free them from the ocean of birth and death. He says, just give up all your dharma, give up your religion, give up your duties, and surrender to me, and I will give you liberation. Do not fear. Krishna said this 3,000 years ago. Christ said it again. And the fact of the matter is, there is grace, but even there, one has to completely offer oneself with love and devotion to God. It's not just about believing, as some people now teach. Oh, just believe. No, it's not enough. It's about devotion. It's about dedication. It's about completely committing yourself to something. Right? And if that something is representative of God or God him herself, well then, it will work beautifully. So thanks for that question. That was a great question. Yes, and yes, Sisi, you're right. There are different levels of awareness. We've been talking about that. The awareness of, just Brahman, which is the energy of the universe, the awareness of God in everyone. And there's different levels of yogic siddhi and awareness as well. But the ultimate awareness is the awareness of the being of God. That has a sweetness unlike anything else. It is the most captivating and the most wonderful experience. And although I can speak of it, the only way to really know of that is to experience it yourself, because it's very, very personal and very, it's like very intimate. And it's hard to, how do you tell someone what it feels like to be in love? And how do you put it into words and the words diminish it. You feel fake when you're trying to say it. You feel like, oh my God, what is this? How can I tell someone how I feel about someone? How much I love someone? How deep that love is? How intense that is? And so it is with God. CC, you're also right here. That is such a powerful statement. We have the quality of God in our souls. Quality, not the quantity of faith. Is what matters, right? Well, I was here referring to, we have the qualities of God, right? But not the quantity. So meaning not the quantity of power. We do not have the power of God to create universes. We do have the power to create something in our life. We can create a work of art. We can create a home. We are little creators. We are tiny creators. But we cannot create universes. We cannot create oceans. We cannot create mountains. We cannot do those things. So even though we have the qualities of God, we do not have the power, the greatness, the ability, or the magnificence of what God can create. But we have those qualities within us. That is why we like to create. Whether that creation is of our own children, whether that creation, and really we don't create, that is created through us. Likewise, if we have a certain talent, that talent was also given to us. So in a way, even the talents we have were placed within us even as we were born. in whatever creation we do, whatever qualities we have. I often tell people, I said, whatever qualities I have been given to me by God. They have been gifts. They are not the product of my hard work or my endeavor or anything. It's nothing I've done to deserve it. Nothing. Whatever knowledge I have, whatever experiences I've had, whatever, are all blessings. That's how I see it. I see I am unworthy of it. And that unworthiness, as we embrace it, it becomes the vessel through which we can receive from God. If you are full, you cannot receive anything. If you are empty, your cup shall be filled. So it's a very simple analogy. Be empty always. Be empty. And the more empty you are, the more you shall receive the grace and blessings of God. Empty means, that's what I was speaking of earlier, that is the annihilation of the ego. The ego is full. The more full it is, the more you move towards that narcissistic, full of yourself kind of thing. And the more empty you are, the more you move towards humility. That is the direction for all of us. Even in the Bible, Christ says it, the greatest amongst you shall be the least, and the servant to all. Okay, let's take a look. Here's a question by Celie where she says, does the intensity of adversity become more difficult as you deepen your spiritual journey, like a gladiator facing a fierce challenge for the victory of life? In fact, Celia, you're right. This is not something I want to say necessarily to everybody because people get discouraged. But no, the challenges get harder. But here's the interesting part. That if I would give the lessons that, or the exam paper of a let's say someone in the 12th grade where they're studying, let's say some advanced literature, let's say Shakespeare for example, and give that to a first grade student, it would seem, oh my God, what is this? I can't make any sense of it. This is too difficult. I cannot do it. So you're given the challenges according to your level, and to someone who's at a beginner level, it may seem daunting and impossible. But when you are at a higher level, it feels very real and very natural. And because you've understood the nature of things, that this is how life comes and it comes to teach you, and you no longer resist that, it's not difficult anymore. It's not a struggle anymore. You're not fighting reality anymore. You are, it's like when I would often have this happen when difficult circumstances would come my way, I'd go, you again. Thanks. So instead of fighting it now there was a welcoming. It's like, all right, so what have you got for me this time? What are you trying to show me now? And there's no resistance to what reality was showing, to what life was showing. You may say God was showing. And I personally think God doesn't get involved with the average person's, life. But when you are trying to get to God, when you are on this path, He takes a personal interest in getting you back. He takes a personal interest in throwing a few little challenges your way and seeing if you're truly committed. Then it doesn't mean anything after that. And you'll notice one thing, at least I've noticed, the challenges stop coming because they're not seen in that sense anymore. Because you're not fighting them, because you're not resisting them. They're not seen as challenges. They're just seen as part of the journey. And it's perfectly okay. CC writes, sometimes recognizing what is good and releasing what is not good is challenging because one becomes fearful of the new. But see, when as long as we are looking at things as good and not good, we will be challenged. And it will be challenging. And we will be fearful of the new. You're absolutely right. But the problem lies not in the idea of letting go good or that which is desirable and undesirable. The key is learning to look at it from a different vibration. First, recognize that the moment you're seeing things as desirable and undesirable, good or bad, when you're seeing things as fearful or new and then resisting that, you're still operating from the mind. First, recognize that. My mind, my ego is resisting this. My mind, my ego is having a difficult time with this. So, as long as you recognize that, you'll find that it's much easier to deal with these situations. The first step is awareness. And then, after awareness, you'll be able to move through those same situations differently. Because what moves through those situations differently is spirit. Spirit, your soul. So you connect with yourself. And then you allow yourself to be guided without those fears, without that sense of better and worse. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for your lovely blessings and your wonderful words. Thank you, Cece and Celie and all of you that are here. I'll just check one last time with those who are on Facebook, on Zoom, and see if there's anything here that they'd like to share with us. And all right, I guess not. Okay, thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. I'll be back in the US then, and yeah, happy Holi again. Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Radhe, Hare Krishna.